Hi there! Welcome to my brand new Let's Play of Armored Core for Answer, the 13th installment in the Armored Core franchise, and a sequel to Armored Core 4, which takes place 10 years before this game does. I think Armored Core 4 covers the events of the National Dismantlement War, which basically puts the entire world in shambles. It's like a post-apocalyptic war time, essentially. At least that's what I gathered from this. I haven't played 4, and the plot for this game is actually fairly linear because of the translations for some reason. To my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, the American version is slightly different from the Japanese version of Armored Core for Answer because of the fact that the translations for the American version aren't as plot-oriented as the Japanese version is. I don't understand why, but that's just the way that things are. Plus, the nature of this game is also fairly empty to a lot of people when you're first kind of starting out, and even it was that for me as well. That's why it kind of took me a little bit to get into this game. But anyway, first couple of things I want to mention before we really get started into this. I apologize if I sound really nasally and really congested, and I have to cough and sniffle here and there. I'm battling a flu right now, so I apologize for that in advance. I will say, excuse me, but I have to cough. You know, I do have manners. I didn't say excuse me that time, so what are you going to do? Anyway, excuse the very slow start to this Let's Play as well. I'm going to be uploading the first episode and the second episode at the same time because of one main fact. I really want to explain a lot to the beginning of this game because to be able to hold your interest and to help you understand what really this game is about, I need to explain a lot of stuff in the first episode. So you will see a little tiny bit of tutorial gameplay, but you're not going to see a lot of the main mission stuff until the second episode. Because, as I say, I want to get a lot of the explanatory stuff out of the way first, because this is a first kind of, you haven't played this game before, probably. If you have, props to you. Armored Core is amazing for what it offers. But for those of you who haven't played it, I'd like to explain a bit of it first. So please excuse the slow start. I don't like explaining a whole lot of stuff a lot of the time. I'd like to get straight to the gameplay, but for this, it kind of needs a bit of explaining. But what makes Armored Core so good? What makes it so interesting as a mech franchise? Well, the fact that Armored Core has very kind of fast-paced battles, but more than that, the customization, the sheer customization of your nexts. Nexts are what our mechs are called in this game. Armored Core nexts, which are piloted by people called Lynx. Now, your basic game options, you don't really need to pay attention to a lot of this stuff. It's pretty balanced as it is. But design and paint data storage, these are important because design, there's a difference between the two of these. Design is basically how you lay your next out. So for instance, your head part, your core, which is like your torso piece, your legs, your arms, your weapons, your stabilizers, etc., etc. And also your tuning data as well. I'll explain those as we get to it. But design data is pretty much like how you lay your next out, parts-wise. Paint data, you can actually store things like emblems in this, which you can create from 16 different layers. I'll explain that as well. You can paint your next piece by piece in any kind of way that you want, which is really nice. It's really nice to have that kind of freedom. Kind of blend Forza Motorsports kind of thing. Their livery editor with this, and you have the kind of... It's nowhere near as detailed as Forza's, but for a mech game, it's really nice for this game. So you can really kind of make things your own personal way, as you see fit. Controls are actually fairly interesting to get used to because of the fact that the simple type is actually kind of hard to get used to for me. It doesn't really give you as much control over your next as a regular A does. As you notice, for simple, jump and fly is the same switch, it's the same trigger. And when you move your Armored Core with the left analog stick, it walks, rotates, and boosts at the same time. So for beginners, it is kind of nice to have that, though when you have a rotate and your look thing does the same thing, it can kind of get a little disorienting. So for me, I choose regular A because boost is its own separate thing. Yes, you can jump and fly using the boost trigger still. However, it gives you a little bit more freedom. You can walk and strafe now instead of turning when you kind of don't really want to. Auto sighting turns your next as you target onto something, kind of obvious there. Auto boost will automatically boost when you're on land or on water. I turn that off just because it allows me to have, as I say, more control. You can actually sink below the water as a strategic tactic. You can actually use that as a tactical advantage. And auto purge, when you run out of ammunition for your weapons, it'll automatically drop them, so you don't have to worry about that. I usually leave those two on. That is the logo for Collard, which I'll explain in a bit as well. But usually what happens here, this is going to be the tutorial mission, your basic movement. This mech next here is called a Lancel. And what will actually happen during the game is you'll actually see, I can't boost yet, it doesn't let you boost, but you can, strafe like this. That looked funny with the feet. But what usually happens in the title screen, or the loading screens, is that they'll actually show you factory-specific schematics for specific nexts that you can actually gain access to as you play the game. But, yeah, so the tutorial mission is fairly self-explanatory, really helpful. Basic movement should show you boosting now. Yep, boost is basically just your way of getting around the environment a lot faster. The number at the top of the screen, as you can see that bar that it's highlighting, it's your energy meter. Using boost drains the energy gauge, as you can probably, as you can read there at the bottom. Flying, there are different types of boosts that do different types of drainage and different, kind of depending on the stress. Quick boosting helps you dodge things like really fast and also helps you turn around easily too. Like I'll show you. You can dodge quickly out of the way for things like that, but if you want to turn around really fast, don't hold the movement joystick in any particular direction. If you're moving forward like this, just turn your view like that and it'll turn you around like that. It's really handy to get used to that advanced tactic. especially when you're in the middle of a next battle and you need to turn around fast. Overboost is it's an incredible amount of fun to use, though it drains the energy gauge and your PA gauge as well. Your PA is basically stands for Primal Armor, and Primal Armor helps actually kind of absorb more damage. It's essentially your shields. It's kind of weird how they call it Primal Armor when it's basically your shield. The Primal Armor also plays like a very important role. Plays another very important role in the next couple of tutorial-based things. When they get to weapons, it'll explain that a little more. Attack basics. That you can have up to 8 weapons on your next. 7 if you're being extremely technical, but for this, I usually say you have 8. Hit the damn thing. As you can see, as you gain more stuff, you actually have your heads-up display can be a little confusing. LA and RA basically kind of means left arm, right arm. Switching between right arm and right back. Left arm, left back. Like that. That's basically how that works. SH is shoulder weapons, which it'll explain to you in a brief moment. You also have a speedometer. It'll automatically switch your weapons for you. Laser rifle, bink! Then you, laser blade, I'm going to get a little closer to it. Because the nifty thing with using laser blade, and also, I'm not going to spam this. I'm literally just going to press this button once and watch how many rockets this thing fires. Such a waste. But and it takes a long time for it to recharge as well. Still, the laser blades are nice, though they actually use up a little bit more energy than conventional weapons do, and quick boosting, because the laser blade actually uses a quick boost to be able to like lunge at your opponents for you. So, and depending on how long you hold the sword button down, determines how long your lunge is going to be. Now, Assault Armor. Assault Armor will completely drain your Primal Armor gauge because it does something a little like this. Now note, that is extremely helpful during next battles. You have no idea. That basically attacks and damages the Primal Armor of pretty much any next it hits. Though, it is a little bit suicidal to actually get up close to a next to use it in the first place. It's nice to use it against simple enemies like that. But that's pretty much that. That's pretty much that for like explaining stuff. I think practice battle, basically put everything you just learned to use here. It's pretty easy. Though the next that I had, the way I'm actually planning to do this game is I'm planning to play through the original, like the normal story, the first ending, because this game is actually divided into 3 separate story arcs, and I'm gonna leave this on. What should I name myself? I'll name myself my old ancient name, just because I feel like it. Select the organization you wish to support. I'll explain what I was explaining in a minute. These are basically acts as your difficulties. GA America is the world's largest corporation. They feature excellent defense and heavy weaponry. So these guys have extremely high PA rectification, meaning there's like high damage absorption. They also have you have access to a lot of heavy weapons like rocket launchers and stuff like that, like Gatling guns. So if you're new to this game, I suggest you go with GA America because, as you say, it's a lot easier to get used to these ones. Though they're a lot slower, but they're a lot like higher defense. They're a lot better for you when you're first starting out. Interior Union is this one I always go with, just because they utilize laser weaponry a little bit more. They're a little bit more energy efficient, which is important. But they also have more highly maneuverable mechs and nexts than any other. It's like a balance. It's a really well balanced one to start with. So I'm gonna be starting with that. Omer Science Technology is much more highly maneuverable Rosenthal machines. And there's slightly less weaponry. Like, this is the Lancel that we were working with in the tutorial mission, with pretty much the same loadout as well. Independent, it's a Raelian Ard model, and it's very highly maneuverable, and it pretty much only excels in close range combat. You only have swords with this thing when you first start out. So, for the most elite players, I'd recommend you could start with this if you want. But I'm going to go with the Interior Union just because I'm a lot more comfortable with this one.
More than 10 years have passed since the National Dismantlement War. A league of corporations has taken control of the world. To escape the pollution that poisons the surface of the planet, they have built massive floating platforms called cradles. Only there, 7,000 meters above the ground, is the air clean and safe. Already half of mankind lives in the skies. The planet's surface has become a battlefield where armies fight to control the resource plants that feed the cradles. As the war came to a close, giant humanoid weapons called Armored Core Nexts enabled the League to firmly establish their rule of the planet. Their pilots are called Lynx. Fearing the power and independence of these Nexts, the League left them behind on the surface. The Lynx now work as mercenaries for an organization called Collard. While the League armies derive their power from massive arms forts, the once mighty Nexts are consigned to the poisoned Earth, serving as foot soldiers in the never-ending economic war.
Chapter 1. Yes. Whoa, voice crack. Yeah. So the National Dismantlement War, I believe, was the arc of Armored Core 4. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't played it. I'm still looking for a copy. It's really hard to find a copy of that. It's easy to find a copy of this, but not so much Armored Core 4. I don't know why that is, but there you go. At least for me. Now, I'm going to explain the rest of these just before we get into this. In the next part, I will be starting the first mission, Attack on Linark. Let's go into Axis. Axis, basically, I don't really know what Axis stands for exactly, but here you can kind of gather from all of these things. This is basically where you come to customize your Next and kind of get it ready for certain missions. Now, a really efficient Next pilot will actually do their best. You'll want to try and tailor your Next for every specific mission if you're trying to go for an S rank. Once you beat this game several times, you'll be able to like kind of tailor your Next for an all-around approach. But if you're having difficulty with S ranking certain missions, because that's actually how missions work, they work through D through S ranking. If you S rank certain missions, you get certain certain upgrades. It's nice to do. But in assembly, this is pretty much just your standard kind of thing. And in the next part, I'll off-screen kind of like fiddling around with this a little bit. But the way in which I'm going to be playing through this game, as you can see here, you can, choose your legs. Your FCS is basically your targeting system, and your heads-up display type stuff. I'm not exactly sure what the FCS thing stands for exactly. If someone can help me clarify that, that'd be nice. But generator basically is how much energy you output. Boosters, you can kind of gather from that much. As I was mentioning, 8 different types of weapons. Your arm units are weapons. Your back units can be weapons. Your shoulder units can be a multitude of different things, actually. You can have either 6 to 8 weapons on this. Shoulder units can be rockets, like you saw in the tutorial mission, but they can also be countermeasures as well, which play a very, very nice role in next battles, like flares. You can also have ECM, which is basically like a radar scrambler of sorts. And a whole variety of other things. You can also add side boosters as well to kind of give you a little bit more edge. Hanger units also play an interesting role because they're not... When you run out of ammunition for your arm units, and only like arms like this will be able to use that. If you use arm weapons, because I'll explain those as well when we actually unlock some. But when you have arms like this, hanger units, basically when you run out of ammunition for your guns, you drop them, and you get hanger units, which are either like little small sidearms, or you can put swords as well. If you use tank legs, which we won't have until like a little bit later, I don't know if I actually have any in the store, but whatever. When you get tank legs, when you use a tank leg structure, you can actually use primary weapons, like these, in your arm unit slots, in the hanger slots. So when you drop a weapon, you can pull out another primary weapon, or when you have arms like this, you can just resort to using a smaller sword type thing. And of course, as you can see, all this is pretty much self-explanatory. The next part, tuning. Tuning is fairly important when you actually kind of get parts. When you won't get any FRS. I'm not sure what that stands for either. Tuning and memory until you start playing hard missions, and you get hard missions when you complete the normal version of that mission. Tuning basically helps you kind of obviously output more out of the parts that you have equipped already. And the next that I'm going to be using for all the hard stuff, that already has maximum tuning for everything. Yeah. So as you can see, it's split into a variety of categories. It's pretty self-explanatory there. Stabilizers help shift the weight balance of your next. If you have things more forward, you'll be able to move forward easier. If you have things backward, you'll be able to move backward easier at the expense of being able to move forward easier. That's kind of how it works. If you balance things out pretty much, increase the center of balance with it, like have it, the next that I have on my double S rank file has stuff on the side, forward, but it kind of has a little difficulty moving backward. That's just kind of the nature of things. Stabilizers can actually look pretty cool as well. Ironic that I have GA America stabilizers when I chose Interior Union, and Interior Union doesn't get along with GA America very well. Who knew? Paints. This is the fun part of customizing your next. As you can see on the left-hand side there, you can see all the different parts. Head, core, right, left arms, legs, right, left units, back units, shoulder, and hanger. You can customize your color scheme however you want with those, and depending on the part that you're choosing, you'll actually get different options as well. So for instance, I'll go into coloring. You can choose all frame, all unit, all stabilizers, or each individual piece, including each individual stabilizer if you want to get that fine-tuning. However, I'm not going to do that. So with this, basically, as you can see here, this has a main, a sub, a support, an optional, joint, device, and an eye. This is the only piece that'll have an eye color to it. The rest of them will either have up to device, from main to device. Some will even have as much as only optional. So it definitely kind of change depending on the part that you're trying to customize. However, you can still have device and joint colors affect in patterns as well. Patterns actually kind of combine all of them. Because as you can see, all of the parts here have preset colors. So for instance, if I want to go to color set for this arm here, for instance, the left arm, I'll rotate the neck so you can see it kind of this way. You have a whole bunch of different preset colors already made. So you can have you can make it kind of that color, you can make it there, that, any way you kind of feel like you want to, kind of just choose from a preset color batch, you can. But if you really want to get fine-tuning with it, you can actually create your own color batches and use them here. Use your colors like that. Now, this kind of funky setup was actually made during a previous recording of this. And I want to show you basically what kind of inspired that. Was when I went into this, I went into pattern, and you can choose from a variety of different camouflages. And as you can see, it already looks kind of interesting, even with the camouflage that way. But I was really blown away by how good that looked. I was actually quite surprised at how well that came out with the color scheme. Though I'm not going to be using that. I was actually planning on using it, but I thought, nah. Yeah. So I'm going to use a color set. I'm going to use one of the, basic color sets. I'm going to fiddle with that while I'm off-screening between these two episodes. Your emblems and your decals. Your emblems, you can unlock emblems, or you can create your own, which I'll show you how to do that in a moment. These are two this is one that Dem created. It's kind of like a demon eye type thing she was going for. This, I was just kind of goofing around with it. Still need a lot of work, but still. Emblems you can actually unlock by defeating next in Collard ranked matches, which I'll explain in a second. Decals. You can actually take those same emblems and put them anywhere on your next that you'd like. Anywhere. Except on the parts and stabilizers. Those are the only parts that you can't use. Those. And then edit image. You can actually create a new image, and as I mentioned, from 16 different layers, you can actually create your own specific decal if you so choose. And you can choose some different things like frames here, creatures, miscellaneous crap, tools, da-da-da-da. And that's pretty much that's there. That's all you really need to know about that. My lopsided arm is going to look great. The shop is kind of a self-explanatory. You can buy and sell parts. Design, this is what I was explaining before. I actually have these are my nexts from my my double S ranked save file, and there's a difference that they should be named the same, but I didn't name it until after. But Kamui is actually supposed to be has some sort of, there's a difference between these two schematics, and I'll explain that why when we actually get to it. But there's a Takami Kazuchi, there's my strayed stuff. These are my basic stuff. But this is my all-rounder. This is my all-round next right here. This is actually a really awesome one, and I cannot wait to use it for the hard missions. You can also separate, what's nice about this is you can actually separate each and every one of these. User 2, you can have like highly maneuverable nexts in this one. You can have really heavily defensive ones. You can have tank-based ones, four-leggeds. You know, pretty much anything you like. You can categorize them by this. There's no limit to how many you can put in here, I believe. And as you can see, missing parts, I can't use these. Trade, you can actually trade schematics with your friends on Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. Company, this is basically where you unlock next schematics and blueprints from the companies themselves. As you can see, I have stuff from Aldra and Interior Union. As you play through the game and you kind of raise your standing with other companies, you'll unlock more mechs and next blueprints based on their standouts. Enemies, as you defeat them in next battles within Collard's ranking system, I'll show one of those in the next episode. When you beat them, you actually get access to their blueprints. You don't get access to their parts, but you do get access to their blueprints, and as I mentioned, their emblem becomes yours as well, so you can use their emblem if you so choose. AC test, you can go here to test your armored core next. You're set up during in 3 different circumstances. 1, normal enemies, just like kind of normal little guys. Normals, which are like a little bit more advanced than normal enemies are, like the normal pushover, kind of like tiddly chicken walker type things. Normals are like kind of smaller nexts in a way, though they're not, you know, normal. You'll see when we actually get into the missions. And then you can actually verse a next, which actually the next in the Armored Core testing phase is actually this one in specific. It's actually this one. The next that you face in the Armored Core test is actually this one right here. Same loadout and everything. It's actually kind of funny. And then in option, you can get a little more fine-tuning with your pilot name if you want to change it. Your Armored Core name, you can change that if you want to. I might during this playthrough. I'm not really 100% sure. Your heads-up display color can be changed to pretty much anything you want as long as it's here. I usually choose the darker maroon color just because I kind of like it. Your normal radar basically gives you depth, so how high an enemy is compared to your position, it'll show that compared to your classic. Classic is like really old style stuff, but normal actually gives you depth. I don't know if this gives you depth. I just use this because it's like a little bit more, I like it a little bit more that way. Control options, basically if you're not really happy with the way your next controls, like as I mentioned earlier, you can change that here. Regulations, I'm doing a little change here because I actually kind of want to. Regulations change how the game plays because, as you can see here, it rebalances the performance of all the parts, all the like booster stuff. This regulation for unlimited energy actually makes it a little harder. However, it basically makes it so that no parts cost any energy at all, which helps for laser weapons and also helps if you want to boost around a lot. However, since overboost uses energy and PA, make sure you don't use overboost too much unless you like have a high enough equipment, like high enough standard equipment next that can actually cope with that, because otherwise you'll be falling to the floor a lot. You'll still run out of energy technically. You'll run out of PA and run out of boost. So anyway, I'm gonna play around with this set of regulations just because it kind of makes things a little easier, although it kind of makes the AI kind of freak out a little bit. So we'll deal with that when it comes. But other than that, that's pretty much all I really needed to explain during this. Coam at the bottom there and on the bottom right, that's basically how much money you have. As you can see there, attack on line arc. On the side, you have 200,000 credits, which is basically how much that mission is going to pay you. You'll get missions in the next episode. You'll see actually have commission. You'll get paid based on how many enemies you defeat with a specific mission target. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I really had to explain throughout the beginning of this. This, as I said, the plot is fairly kind of empty with this, and it's not really, you know, you just choose missions from a menu. You don't really like have any. There's no streamlined involvement with this. You just like kind of pick your own missions. But there are 3 separate story arcs to the end of this. So the final thing I'm going to explain is how I'm actually going to play this game. To unlock every mission, you need to play this game at least 5 times. At least 5 times to unlock every mission. Because certain missions that you complete will actually cause others to pop up. And as I say, to unlock every mission, you'd probably have to play through about 5 times. And luckily, when you complete the mission, when you complete the game, all of the stuff that you earn carries over and lets you play through again. But anyway, I'm done talking. I'll let you guys kind of, I'm excited to get this game going through. I apologize this part took so long to get through, but there's a lot to this game that I wanted to explain first, and unfortunately I couldn't really do it in a short amount of time. There's a lot of in-depth detail that I need to go into, especially during the missions as well. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed. I'm really excited to get this Let's Play going, and I hope to see you guys back in the next episode directly after this, which should be uploaded at the same time. So if you want to see some gameplay, head on over to that episode. I will see you guys back in that episode if you're entirely interested. I'll see you later. Hope you enjoy. Bye!